Here's to whiskey kisses, the peaty taste of sin. An Edinburgh morning with the smell of brewing.
Greetings, whiskey folk, and springtime salutations to you all. Welcome back to Drinking Out Loud. My name is Adam Bradshaw, and we are here on the Dram Association YouTube channel in the Strath studio for another exciting episode. And today's episode is a bit of a special edition because we are having an Indy showcase. Now, for those of you who might not be aware of what an Indy showcase is, well, it's a series of events that we started in the Dram Association where we wanted to highlight independently bottled whiskies. Not necessarily Scotches, but predominantly Scotches. And what an independently bottled whiskey is, in essence, is it's when a whiskey is released by a company who isn't the creator of it. So a company that might go and purchase casks of whiskey from a distillery or from a broker and then put it in their own branding and release it under their own name. I guess the opposite of that would be an official bottling, which is when a distillery releases it themselves. So like Lefroy Quarter Cask, for example, is an official bottling. It's released by Lefroy, has Lefroy on the label. Whereas, for example, the Williamson from Morrison Mackay that we released a little while ago and was just absolutely fantastic is an independently bottled whiskey. Morrison Mackay, or just now Morrison Distillers, Distilling Company, I think they changed their name to, are an independent bottler, and they released their own cask of Lefroy under the brand Williamson. So yeah, that's a little sneak of an idea of the difference between an independently bottled whiskey and an official bottling. And today is all about Indy. This is Indy Showcase 7, and we have 8 incredible Scottish whiskies. All Scotch here today, and yeah, it's going to be a neat one. You know, here at the Dram Association, we love independently bottled whiskey. The last Indy Showcase we had actually was a very special edition where we only had grain whiskies. It was really cool. Since then, we've done an Indy Spotlight for the first time ever, shining a spotlight on one specific bottler and having a representative of that company actually join us on the channel as well. That was pretty cool. And now we're back to the standard formula. We've got 8 new whiskies from a variety of different independent bottlers. Of course, some of these whiskies are brand new. Some of them will be released in real time alongside this video. And some of the whiskies have been on our shelves for a little while now. Whatever the case may be, they are all going to be featured whiskies in the Dram Association, which means everybody will be able to get 10% off without having to be a premium member. Regular Dram Association members, this is your chance to get a 10% discount on some incredible brand new whiskies. So fingers at the ready. Make sure you've logged into your account at strathliquor.com. Keep that Dram Association page open and refresh every time I release a new whiskey, and it should pop up right there. Unless it's already sold out, which a couple of these, it might not take long to sell out. And we're going to start our journey today with a whiskey which I brought in a long time ago, kind of mostly just because it was very intriguing. It's a company that I'm very familiar with, but not because of whiskey. A Scottish company, though, certainly got ties to whiskey, and that's a company called Krabbys. Yeah, you might be familiar with Krabbys. They actually started in 1801. Yeah, they've been around for a while. They started off in Leith, which is historically the sort of the more working class area of Edinburgh. Is actually where the vaults of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society are located as well. And like many other companies that went on to become famous whiskey companies, they started life as a grocery store. So much like Johnny Walker did. Much like Gordon MacPhail. A whole lot of whiskey companies started life as grocery stores, which kind of makes sense if you think about the history of whiskey and blending and how the stores were the people that would buy whole casks of whiskey and blend their own versions of whiskey. However, this store in particular had interesting trade ties. They had access to exotic ingredients from around the world, because Leith is a big port. It's one of the biggest ports in Scotland. Certainly, I think the biggest port on the east coast. But yeah, so for a long time they've not been associated with whiskey, but they have been associated with ginger. and you might be familiar with their alcoholic ginger beer, which actually at the time of recording is out of stock in the warehouse, and we're desperately trying to get more because we have a couple of regular customers who are huge fans of Krabbys ginger beer. I'm sure it'll be back soon. But they also make ginger wine, which is somewhat more popular in Scotland and not really very popular here. Ginger wine, from what I understand, is made from reconstituted raisins rather than fresh grapes, and it's basically just alcoholic ginger juice. You know, it's the strength of wine, but it tastes like ginger and sugar. And its most common use in Scotland is something called a whiskey mac, the most Scottish cocktail you will ever hear. It is equal parts whiskey and ginger wine. Yeah, it's pretty damn good. It's a bit like a rusty nail, but a gingery rusty nail, I guess. Yeah, but they're very proud of their ginger wine heritage. So John, who started off the Krabbys brand, actually travelled around the world to get his contracts and to get ginger, because his ginger was very, very popular. They actually steep their products. I think this is the case for both their ginger beer and their ginger wine. They steep the ginger for 6 weeks. It's quite a long process. But yeah, he travelled the world. He ended up in Sri Lanka, I think it was. Somewhere around there, and fell in love with the ginger, but also fell in love with elephants. And you will find that every Krabbys product, including the one I'm about to bring out right now, has an elephant on the front of it, which is kind of a cool harkening back to its origins. But also they've taken that one step further, and they're involved with the Millennium Elephant Foundation in Sri Lanka, where they provide a lot of money for the support of that foundation. I believe they also specifically are involved in funding the uniforms, which is kind of cool. I kind of like the idea. Hopefully they have everyone's going around in Krabbys t-shirts. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, they started a distillery. I know we're talking about independent bottlers right now, so it seems weird that I'm talking about the fact that they've started a distillery. But yeah, they've started a distillery in Leith, which is really cool. And to really sort of cement themselves to the whiskey side of things, as opposed to the ginger side of things, they started independently bottling some whiskey. Actually, very, very similar to the story of Talent, who are in the process of setting up their distillery in Vancouver. And if you missed our episode with Simon Farrington of Talent a couple of weeks ago, actually quite a while ago now, over a month ago, seriously check that episode out. One of the most interesting interviews I've had here on Drinking Out Loud. But yeah, similar idea here, that whilst they're setting up the distillery, whilst they're initial distillations are being matured, they're independently bottling some whiskey. Something that's very, very common these days, especially so in Ireland, but it's becoming more common in Scotland as well. And this is what they come up with. Krabbys Yardhead. This is one of many, actually, that they've come up with. They're actually a really varied independent bottler, even though they've been doing it for a very short amount of time. They've even got a 50-year-old Bunnahabhain, which is kind of nuts. This, however, is definitely not a 50-year-old Bunnahabhain. All we know about this is it was distilled in the Highlands somewhere. It's a single malt Scotch whiskey from the Highlands. Yeah, who knows where. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we'll figure it out from tasting it. But they do have a little bit of a write-up on the back. Krabbys Yardhead single malt Scotch whiskey. John Crabby was a pioneer in whiskey and challenged convention. In the early 1800s, he had the outlandish idea of mixing his whiskey and his ginger wine, and in doing so, created the Whiskey Mac, one of the first ever whiskey cocktails. Mix Krabbys Yardhead and Krabbys ginger wine in equal proportions, over ice if you wish, in a tumbler, relax and enjoy. So this is specifically to go with ginger wine. I haven't seen, to the best of my knowledge, Krabbys ginger wine available in the market in BC here. We can get Stones, so actually, on that, I actually, when I first started working here, wanted to get Stones in, and I managed to persuade our manager Megan to bring Stones in, and I'm fairly sure I was the only person that actually bought any. As a result, we haven't actually had any in since. But if you guys really want to try a Whiskey Mac, I'm sure if I get enough requests, I can persuade Megan to bring in some ginger wine again. But yeah. Maybe I'll do another video later on. If I like this whiskey, I'll bring in the Stones ginger wine, and we'll make a Whiskey Mac and see how it performs in a Whiskey Mac. But I'm really intrigued to see what kind of a whiskey they put together here. Mostly, to be honest, because of the price. This is already available on the website. You can get it right now. So long as I'm paying attention when I'm watching this video back and you're not distracting me too much in the live chat. Hi, live chat. If you're watching this at the premiere, there is a live chat happening. Feel free to ask any questions or anything in the text chat there, or drop us a note in the comments. But yeah, hopefully I will have pressed the button to activate the discount right now, because this is normally $46. Yeah, this is a single malt Scotch whiskey for $46. And right now, because of the 10% off, it's $41.40, which is frankly just disturbingly low amount of money for a single malt. So I don't have necessarily high hopes for this. I mean, I hope it's, palatable at least. But even if it's only, pretty good, for $41, that's pretty good, right? So I'm I'm looking forward to trying this one. This has got to be the cheapest whiskey. Sorry, I shouldn't use the cheap word. Marketers don't like me using the cheap word, do they? The least expensive whiskey with a cork that I've ever seen. Although it was possibly the least impressive cork pop we've had on the show. I'm going to try that again. Take two. No, it's a bit rubbish, that. Your corks are a bit loose, Crabbies. All right, well, it's pale, as would be expected. Ooh. But it actually smells pretty good, actually. Surprisingly good on the nose from the first impression there. Let's put this bottle up front. Give you guys a nice shot of the label there. Yeah, no. First thing on the nose there, quite caramelly, quite sweet. It's got butterscotch. It's got pepper. It's a little bit of a youthful wood impression. I think they probably used some virgin casks in this. Yeah, it's got, that slight hint of pencil shaving. But yeah, no, that's really surprisingly promising on the nose, I have to say. You know what this smells like? This smells like halfway between Deanston 12 and Deanston Virgin Oak. Right? It's got that sort of more rough, woody aspect of the Virgin Oak, but that nice sort of creamy, fudgy, herbal thing of the 12. Hey, that's developing nicely as well. I'm getting like sort of orange cream. Oh, that's... Huh. I'm frankly amazed by the aromas of this. It's a little touch of smoke as well. You don't generally get such sort of delicate, complex notes in such a assumedly young, inexpensive whiskey. Slanchavar. I'm gonna... All right. I'm gonna say Earl Grey tea there. It's got that sort of floral, orangey tea thing on the palate. A couple of spoonsful of brown sugar in it. And that is a very palatable $41 whiskey. Huh. I've often said, especially when people are buying whiskey as a present and they're looking, for good value and interesting stuff, that unless you're absolutely attached to the idea of having a single malt, then for this kind of price range, blends are the way to go. You can get much better blended whiskey in that sort of $40 to $60 price range. I might not be able to say that whilst we have this one in stock, because this is bizarrely good. I could quite happily drink this. I could quite happily drink a lot of this. That being said, this is my first whiskey of the day, and I might just be really craving whiskey right now, and there might not be a fair comparison. I will revisit this after I've had a couple more to give it a better... give you guys a better idea of its quality, because I'm questioning myself right now, because I'm liking this far more than I thought I would or should. But yeah, Crabby's Yardhead. I don't know what to say. If there's any left, pick one up. I know there was only a couple of bottles left on the shelf. I guess I'll try and order another case if there is any. Honestly, I was mostly putting this out there to just because we had a couple left and I wanted to see what it was like. Wasn't expecting to be quite so captivated by it. Crabby's Yardhead. Congratulations, you get 2 thumbs up for me in terms of value. That is, yeah, as good of a budget malt as I can remember having. If you're used to buying something like, say, what's that one that Beam does? McClellan's. If you're used to buying McClellan's Speyside or Highland, and for maybe cocktails or something, do yourself a favour, upgrade. I mean, it's the same. It's probably cheaper than McClellan's, to be honest. I'm going to be talking to any of the cocktail guys that I know. I'm going to be dropping Sean Sewell a line and being like, hey, next time you need to be working on a cocktail and you need a single malt specifically for it, this is the way forward. I hope if there's none left in the warehouse right now, I hope it gets restocked again soon. Thankfully, I know the importers, and I will be shooting James a message after that I've finished this recording and saying how much I was frankly shocked by this whiskey. Let's move on, shall we? Before I just lose it completely. Crabby's Yardhead. Who knew? Whiskey number 2 today is where I was expecting to really start this show with a fun little blast. This is a brand new independent bottler to the shelves of the Strath. We've never had anything from these guys before. I mean, we've never had anything from Krabbys before either. But that's been on the shelf for a while. This is a new release. This is releasing right during this video. I will say, as soon as I reveal the price, it'll be available online. But this is La Maison Do Whiskey. Yeah, it sounds French. That's because it is. It was established in 1956 by Georges Benetat after falling in love with whiskey in Casablanca, of all places. La Maison de Whiskey started life as a wholesale importer of fine whiskies, mostly to the hotel industry. But in 1961, they opened their first storefront. They now have 4, 2 in Paris, 1 in Saint-Denis de la Réunion, and 1 in Singapore. In 1997, they started Whiskey.fr, now one of the biggest online whiskey retailers in the world. In 2002, they were the first importers of Nika, who they now have the complete distribution rights to in the whole of Europe. And in fact, actually, for the longest time, it's only changed in 2020, they used to be involved in bringing Nika to Canada as well. So yeah, I mean, their import-export arms are long-reaching. So they have, of course, like many, got into the independent bottling side of things, and they have a really interesting series of whiskies. A series of whiskies called the Artist Collective. And this is what they have to say about it. Since the dawn of time, artist collectives have been a place of exchange, inspiration, and creativity. So this is a collection which celebrates the diversity of malts through working with contemporary artists. And not only do they work with some of the best single malt whiskies from throughout Scotland, whiskies that they buy by the cask loads, but also with some of the world's best artists. And what they do is they actually buy the license of the artwork. They buy the artwork itself, I believe, and then they use that artwork on the packaging of the whiskey, so that the artists get paid a fair price for their work, and also get quite a lot of promotion as well. It's a really cool little thing. Now, before we get too far into this journey, I do want to preface that because we're not only supporting whiskey, but also supporting the arts with this venture, and because it's also being imported via France, so it's got Scotland, France, Canada, they're a little bit more expensive. Not too much, actually, but a little bit more expensive than you might find from other independent bottlers. But I'm really, really hopeful that their reputation for quality it can be found in the bottles that we've brought in. But I can say right from the get-go, their reputation for packaging certainly is. And I didn't know this when I ordered it, but this first whiskey actually not only comes in a beautiful box, but actually comes in a much bigger box than I was expecting, and with 2 free glasses. So our very first ever La Maison Do Whiskey artist collection at the Strath is a Clynelish 10 in just a phenomenal box. Yeah, I mean, it's not intricately carved oak or anything like you get in the $1,000 bottles of whiskey, but in terms of a printed high-quality card box with I think it's got a magnetic latch as well, it's a good quality build, but more importantly, just beautiful artwork on this as well, which is really cool. And it actually has a write-up of the artwork on the back. So this is, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this because it's got all kinds of crazy brackets on it, but I don't even know what kind of bracket that is. You know, the kind of pointy arrow brackets that you see in coding? Yeah, bracket, I-con 3.2.3, close bracket, is the name of this artwork. Not sure why. Cool. By Serge Lafox. I think it's Serge, it might be Sergei, something along those lines. But Serge Lafox was born in Strasbourg, so probably Sergei, in 1966. Self-taught, he studied painting from books before seeking out new experiences and trying his hand at various techniques. Serge was raised in a family with a passion for the arts. Painting allows him to express his identity in different forms. All his creations are drawn in an intimate universe, mixing effects and colours. And you can see more of his artwork at the official website, www.sergelefox.fr. sergelefox.fr. I just love the concept behind this series of whiskies, and I also love Clynelish, one of my favourite distilleries and one that we just simply do not get enough of here in British Columbia. The Clynelish 14 disappeared years ago. We haven't seen it in a long time. I'm hoping that this Clynelish 10 will give us a nice alternative temporarily. All right. I'm gonna see if I can do this for the camera. There we go. How's that? Isn't that beautiful? So, let's pull the bottle out. Actually, I'll show you the glasses as well. I'm not going to use the glasses because we have a member of our club who is an artist who I think would very much appreciate these. So I might offer them to her, but they'll end up somewhere good. But yeah, that's how the label looks. And yeah, I think that's a thing of beauty. So let's take a look at what it says. So, Artist Collective, distilled at Clynelish Distillery in 2008. It is 10 years old, a single malt Scotch whiskey from the Highlands. Collective 2.7. So this is the second series of collectives that this one's from. This was a batch of 9 casks. So they're not single cask, but they are small batch whiskies. And they were all refill bourbon barrels. Casks individually selected and bottled in Scotland for La Maison Do Whiskey. 9-11 Rue Matre, 9211 Clichy, France, product of Scotland. Bottled at 43% volume. So, not a high ABV, and the Artist Collective actually has, I think, 4 different ABVs that it aims for, depending on the style of whiskey that it thinks will work best at different ABVs. But yeah, I mean, thankfully, as far as I'm aware, one of them is not 40. Not that I have necessarily anything against 40% whiskey, as we just found out with the Yardhead. This, I didn't even think to look at the ABV. I was distracted by everything else. Yeah, 40. Yardhead is 40, and pretty good. This Clynelish is 43, so hopefully we'll see a little bit more viscosity, a little bit more sort of concentrated flavours. But yeah, it's designed to be ready to drink, in a sense. You shouldn't have to think about adding water to this one, which for a lot of people is actually quite good. I mean, I actually, as much as I know many people who are, cask strength campaigners, I know a lot of people who are just like, just give me a whiskey I can just pour in a glass and drink and not have to worry about. I just want to enjoy it. That's probably what they're doing with this one. Nice pop there. Yeah, so that's the kind of colour I was expecting, to be honest. It's hard to tell the colour with this sort of smoked glass that they're using here, but for a 10-year-old whiskey in refill bourbon barrels, it should be all about the spirit flavors. We should be looking a lot more at spirit flavors here and a lot less at cask influence. And with a distillery like Clynelish, that is music to my ears. I know a lot of people are very ageist when it comes to whiskey. I'm not, especially when it comes to distilleries. I love the characteristics of the distillery. Clynelish is well known for its big, waxy coastal flavors, and that comes from the spirit. It doesn't come from the cask. So I'm hoping to find that here in this whiskey. I believe non-chill, filtered, and non-coloured. I don't know that it actually says. Yeah. I know that these guys do export to Germany, so it should say Mitfarbstoff somewhere if it does have colour. I don't see any anywhere. I'm fairly sure this is a relatively high integrity malt in that kind of aspect. Oh, waxy lemon peels on the nose straight off. Yeah. Salted lemon. Maybe even lime. It makes me feel like adding some tequila. Making a margarita out of it, but obviously I'm not going to do that. That would be weird. Actually, though, on tequila, hope you guys tune in. We are going to be doing a very special Cinco de Mayo little mini tequila tasting, trying some tequilas from the point of view of a whiskey drinker, so tune in on Cinco de Mayo for that. Yeah, that's a very, very pleasant, quite Clynelish-y nose. A little bit more citric than I was expecting, but very, very pleasant so far. Slange bar. Yeah, that'll do quite nicely. That is a really good alternative to the Clynelish 14 that I miss in the market here. Herbal. Got that beautiful sort of soft manuka honey wax thing. Yeah. Yeah, that is a really good, nice, spirit-forward, beautiful Clynelish. And I say spirit-forward, I do want to point out, actually, it does have a certain maturity to it. It certainly doesn't feel young. It feels right. It feels... You know how there are some whiskies, like Glenmorangie 10 is a perfect example. Glenmorangie 10 doesn't feel young. It feels right? It doesn't feel particularly over-mature, but it certainly doesn't feel under-mature. It feels like it's been pulled at the right time. This has that same kind of feeling to me. Almost makes me wonder why the official bottling Clynelish has always been 14, because they can definitely get away with younger. As we've seen from the S&WS, we've had 8 and 9-year-olds with the S&WS as well. And they tend to be quite punchy at cask strength, which is not necessarily actually what I'm looking for a Clynelish. I find myself with S&WS Clynelish when I buy one for personal use, which I often do, though, like I said, one of my favourites. I find myself adding quite a lot of water to them, because for me, Clynelish is all about that beautiful, easy-to-drink, soft, oily complexity. Yeah. I'm impressed so far. I have to say I'm impressed. I'm also especially impressed that I thought this was a pretty decent price for a 10-year-old independently bottled Clynelish before I even knew that it came with 2 free glasses in a beautiful box. So you can get this beautiful bottle with 2 wonderful glasses and this nice presentation box. Normally, it would be $189.48. Right now, with your 10% discount, it is available for $170.53. 170.53. Welcome to the Strath, La Maison Do Whiskey Artist Collective. Very cool. And we're going to keep the Indy Showcase rolling with another brand new independent bottler. 3rd in a row, brand new independent bottler to the Strath. And yeah, this one is one that we actually had someone on Facebook request. I responded being like, I don't know who represents them. I haven't seen a single one in the BC market as far as I'm aware. And then one randomly turned up in the warehouse. It's like they could see the future. And I've never had anything from this independent bottler. I've heard they're pretty good. And only one expression appeared. I don't know why. For me, if you're going to bring in a whiskey from an independent bottler, bring 2 or 3 in. I only saw one. So I saw it, I got it, and now we have it. And that is Rest and Be Thankful. Quite a nice name for a whiskey company, and one that, in a sense, I think we all need to remember to do every now and again, right? So yeah, Rest and Be Thankful. This is a newer company. They started in 2012, but they hit the ground running with with now over 20 distilleries that they've worked with, which is actually very impressive. They were founded by Fox Fitzgerald Whiskey Trading, who started life as the exporters of Strongbow cider. Yep, Strongbow cider. Nothing against Strongbow cider. I personally think they're a hell of a lot better than the other most common cider that you find on draft here in BC, whose name I'm definitely blanking on right now. The really weirdly sweet one that we have it on the rooftop, and I don't know why. I wish Strongbow was up there. Anyway, I don't mind Strongbow cider. It's perfectly good. This is probably going to be better. Yeah, cool little company. They're actually the sponsors of their namesake classic car trial, Hill Climb. Yeah, that's right. There's a Rest and Be Thankful Hill Climb in Argyll, in Glencoe, Argyll in Scotland, which has been an annual event since, I didn't write it down. It was something like 1903. It's like been going for a very, very long time. So I assume that the name of the independent bottling company is probably a homage to that event. It's, yeah, pretty cool. So that first Rest and Be Thankful that we have that is right here is a 2008 Fettercan. Yeah, distillery we don't see too often. Fettercan is owned by White & Mackay, so it's the same guys that run Dalmore and Jura and those kind of distilleries. And, you know, no disrespect to White & Mackay, they do amazing things for the people that enjoy the kind of whiskey they put out. Generally not my jam. I find them a little bit too overly refined in a sense. They're a little, I don't want to say fake feeling, but, you know, they add a lot of unnatural colour. And it's, you know, it's like someone who's had, you know, a long session in a tanning bed and has those long fake nails and bleach blonde hair. It's just not my style. I like a bit of reality in my whiskey, and this is kind of a more real whiskey, I hope, than if it was bottled by the company that distills it. Yeah. Rest and Be Thankful. Rest and Be Thankful was the inscription on a stone placed by the soldiers at the top of Glen Crow in 1753. The climb through the valley was so long and steep that it was traditional for travellers to rest at this point and be thankful for having completed the climb. Rest and Be Thankful Whiskey Company do not just bottle the finest rare single malt whiskies from the best distilleries, they bottle a state of mind that allows the drinker to experience the same feeling of bliss and contentment felt by those weary travellers all those years ago. Slancher. Huh. So I guess the hill climb is named after the inscription on the stone. That's pretty cool. I have to say, I like what they're doing here. I think the branding looks really cool. I like that it's single cask, limited edition of 218 bottles. Gives you the exact distillation date, or, well, actually the cask filling date rather than distillation date. It was filled on the 30th of October 2008, cask number 4653. It was bottled on the 20th of May 2019 at a strength of 55.9% ABV, non-chill filtered, no colouring, bottled at cask strength from the Highlands. Cool. I'm excited. Let's give this Fettercan a try, shall we? Also, kind of a cool distillery to choose in a sense with the name, because a cairn, of course, is, you know, a pile of stones. It's a marker, usually on the top of a hill. Rest and Be Thankful, named after a marker on top of a hill. Poetic, I think. Nice little bottle. Alrighty, same information on the bottle as was on the tube, so I won't keep you any longer. Let's crack her open. Ooh, and a very, very satisfying pop. $55.9. So straight up on the nose, I'm going custard powder. Custard powder, peaches, a little tiny touch of smoke. No alcohol burn on the nose, surprisingly, for the 55.9 after having two quite low ABV ones, a 14 and 43, followed by a 55.9. I was expecting to feel a little more there. Yeah, very, very peaches and cream on the nose. Very nice. I want to say porridgey almost too. Yeah, like a custard porridge with peaches and cream. Slanch of iron, I'll give it a try. You can taste the strength much more so than you can find it on the nose, but it's very pleasant. That is it. It feels like the alcohol strength actually adds. I mean, I know obviously it does add flavor in the sense because it's not been watered down, but it feels like it adds a dimension to it of like a sort of tingly sensation, like a sort of sourness almost. It's like having a sour candy. Yeah, it's like taking a fistful of fuzzy peaches and sour keys and eating them together. Still has that peach flavor. Quite sweet. I'm not getting too much in the way of like herbs and spices. It's very much a creamy, grainy, orchard fruity thing that's going through me right now, and yeah, no, that's very, very pleasant. I will be thankful. Can't promise to rest though, there's a lot to get done, but I will certainly be thankful. Yeah. Peach porridge. I forget, actually, one of the things that is customary at Indy showcases is to actually come up with names for these whiskies, and I might outsource that to the local whiskey club who are going to be helping me with these, finishing off these bottles at a later date. I might outsource that task to them, but I would say something along the lines of James and the Giant Peach Porridge. Just throwing it out there. But yeah, very, very pleasant whiskey. Yeah, I think Rest and Be Thankful can be quite proud of what they've done with the Feta can. I've had a couple of Feta cans. They're a bit hit and miss, and this is definitely a hit. Good stuff. 10-year-old Feta can, normal 172.96. Right now it is 155.66, and you can find that at strathliquor.com. Again, the easiest way to keep track of these new releases, if you're watching this video at the release, is to just keep the Dram Association page open. And you can get to the Dram Association page via the clubs menu, our clubs menu at the top of strathliquor.com, or you can just go to dramassociation.com, it'll lead to the same place. And yeah, just keep refreshing that one every time I release a new whiskey, and it should appear in that featured whiskey section, along with other whiskies that are currently being featured, including, it's that time again, to plug the Old Perth. Old Perth Victoria Whiskey Festival 2020 edition. Still available, still 10% off throughout the entire season whilst we work with the Victoria Whiskey Festival to raise money for local charities. Something that we're taking a little break on during April, mostly because of supply chain issues and organising the interviews, but we will be back with a vengeance in May with some of the most excellent special guests and some of the most excellent special releases, some of which are exclusively available at our store here in BC. Very exciting news. So, we're now going to an old favourite in terms of companies. After three that we've never had before at the Strath, we're going to go back to one where we're quite familiar with these guys. We've had them in the past. One of our very, very first ever Dram Association tastings was a tasting which I guess probably would have we could retrospectively call it Indy Spotlight. We did a Hunter Lang Indy Spotlight, entirely old malt cask. We'd had 8 old malt casks that we released at once. It was really cool. But we don't have an old malt cask, but we do have a Hunter Lang. So let me explain. Headed by Stuart Lang and founded in 2013 after his brother Fred and himself decided to split up the family business, which was Douglas Lang. They didn't take the name of the business, but they did take the brand Old Malt Cask. However, such a name doesn't lend itself to all kinds of Scotch now, does it? Old Malt Cask. What about Old Grain Cask? Well, they didn't think that had quite the ring to it, so they bottle their grain whiskies under a different name. And that name is The Sovereign. And that's what we have here today. Just want to mention as well, very excited that their new distillery in Islay is getting going. Ardnahoe is very cool. And on that as well, we do actually have a very, very exciting set of 5 very special Islay whiskies from these guys, which you can find out more about in our most recent news update, the most recent Dram report, because it's here. I physically have it hidden somewhere, and you can actually use your Dram Association discount to save a lot of money if that set is something you're interested in. But for now, we're talking Sovereign and we're talking single grain. We're talking 25-year-old single grain from Girvan. That is what we're talking right now. And I need a Glencairn. Let's have a look. Sovereign single grain Scotch whisky aged in a single cask, distilled at Girvan Distillery. Aged in a bourbon barrel, bottled at cask strength, non-chill filtered, and natural colour. Has a little bit of a official tasting notes there. I'll pass those by. I want to come up with my own original thoughts on that. It was distilled on October 1991 and bottled in March of 2017, aged for 25 years. The Sovereign. Mighty fine. All right. Ooh. Broke the foil tab there. I'm going to have to pick at it for a second. Don't mind me. There we go. Alrighty. The Sovereign. Very nice. We love a good grain whiskey here at the Dram Association. As I mentioned before, the last indie showcase that we had was entirely grain whiskey, which was actually really fun. Yeah, ooh. I think the thing I like about grain whiskey is how it doesn't make you think about it too much. It's a relatively easier style of whiskey to enjoy, especially in warmer summer weathers. This just goes down a treat. If you're sat on the deck or on the balcony, you've got your feet up, and you just want to enjoy a whiskey whilst letting the sun soak through you, this is the right kind of whiskey for that in my mind. I think grain whiskey lends itself to that really well. Werther's Originals on the nose. A little bit of molasses, actually. There's a little bit of a darker blackstrap molasses thing going on there. Minty. It's all the kind of things you might find in your glove box, you know? I don't know about you, but when I used to drive around a lot more, I had this habit of forgetting that I had anything in the car. You know, I'm on a long trip, 4-hour drive or something. I'll stop for gas and be like, I like sucking on a boiled sweet when I'm in the car. The flavor lasts for a long time. You don't have to do anything with your hands. It doesn't distract you from driving. And it doesn't make annoying chewing sounds that your fiance hates. So sucking on a Werther's Original or a barley sugar or a mint or something goes really well. But I always forget that I've already bought some, so I always buy another packet and then add it to the giant sort of basically sack of boiled sweets that somehow lives in the glove box. So I don't know if that's a universal thing or a me thing, but yeah, that's what I'm getting here. Oh. You wouldn't want to be found with this in your glove box, though. It's 58.9% ABV. That is such a big, bold, rich flavour. There's so much more wood influence going on in here than any of the 3 whiskies we've had before. And after 25 years, that does, of course, make a lot of sense. But I'm getting so much vanilla fudge toffee. Some nice delicate herbal notes. I always look for dill now in grain whiskies. That's something that Tom Vanderroot, was it Vi? It was one of the Vanderroots, who are the guys that run the Companions of the Quake over in Sydney, up the island a little bit. Well, not really up the island, but north, I guess, from here. Yeah, very, very good whiskey lovers. They quite rightly noted that that is a note that you often find quite often in grain whiskies, and I've been looking for it ever since. And yeah, it's relatively weirdly common. Getting a little fennel. Yeah. If you're a fan of grain whiskies, then I mean, I can definitely recommend this as a really good example of that style. If you're not that familiar with grain whiskies, but this kind of sounds like something you want to give a try, this is a great starting point for old grain whiskey. This is something special. This is a 25-year-old single cask Scotch, but simply because it's a grain and not a malt. And that means it's made with grains that aren't just malted barley, and it's made in a column still, usually as well. It doesn't make it any less of a whiskey. It's just a very different style. It's a style that I think is a little harder to achieve such high highs, but when you get them, they're very good. In fact, a little thing about Girvan here. So this is a massive grain distillery run by William Grants, and it's actually mostly wheat. It's 91.5% wheat and 8.5% malt that goes into this. So it's a very different style of grain whiskey to the corn ones as well. It's very soft, very inviting, very sweet. Yeah. And it's a 25-year-old single cask that won't break the bank too much either. So normally this is $242.52. Right now it is $218.27, and that is available right this second at strathliquor.com. 25-year-old Girvan from Sovereign, part of the Hunter Lang Company. Very nice indeed. Well, as is tradition in these sort of 8-part tastings, that we're kind of following the blueprint of the SWS outturn somewhat, I guess, for these indie showcases. It's not quite a blatant rip-off, but, you know, we definitely borrowed a few things from it. One thing that often happens is the back row, as it's often referred to, the second set of 4, part 2, is often where you find the slightly more fuller flavours, slightly bolder flavours, so things like sherry casks or other wine casks, things like peat. And yeah, this is definitely the case today. And we are revisiting the Artist Collective. We actually, we got more than one, and we're showcasing more than one here today because I'm very excited about this company. So we have another Artist Collective, and this one is sherry cask. This one is an Altmore, a 13-year-old Altmore from a first fill sherry butt. It's 2 casks that were blended together. It's 48% this time as well, so a nice little bump up from that Kleinlich that we had, which I think honestly matches the style of whiskey. These guys know whiskey. They've been dealing with it for a long time. They know what the hell they're doing. They know that Kleinlich can be enjoyed really well at 43. They know that for a big, bolder flavour like a first fill sherry but Altmore, you want it boosted up to 48. I think it's quite clever. Different whiskies work well at different rates. That's why I personally really like cask strength, because you can then put it to whatever rate you personally want it at. But in terms of having a more curated, in terms of, little like borrow a phrase from the art world there, in terms of having a more curated experience, I think this is a really good idea. So yeah, this is 3.3, so from the next series up from the Kleinlich there. Altmore 13. Very exciting. Let's see what I can tell you about the artwork, which is quite stunning. It reminds me a lot of koi carp, actually, the texture, I guess, at the bottom especially. This is Jardin. Oh, this has got the brackets in it again. I think that's just a formatting thing that they do. So, yep, just looking over at some more bottles over here. Yep, that's definitely the case. So ignore what I was talking about the brackets being part of the name for the last one. That's just me not knowing anything about their formatting. This is just called Jardin by Charlotte Marchand. After studying at the Cambre of Brussels, Charlotte Marchand delivered a pictorial artwork based on colour research and a mix between collage and drawing. Her artwork is about the deconstruction leading to the confrontation between original materials of the item, their origin, and the shared perception we have. Finally, her artwork turns space into a pattern play. Bright colours and transparency. And we're all about transparency in the whiskey world. We like to know where our whiskey's coming from when we ever have the opportunity. And I have to say, isn't that just a beautiful box? Like, it's simple and effective. This is probably my favourite whiskey branding I've ever come across. And then on the other side, it's got all of the information right there. I think I'm just absolutely enamoured with the presentation of the Artist Collective. Let's take a look at the bottle, though, shall we? So I believe it's the same, so same sort of label layout and whatnot as the Kleinisch there. Again, very smart, very pretty. I like the smoked glass. I mean, I know it means that you can't really tell the colour of the whiskey that well, but the colour of the whiskey doesn't really matter. It's just, it's a fun thing. It's a note, but at the end of the day, I don't really care what it looks like. I'm much more interested in what it tastes like for the whiskey itself. But yeah, that's just a beautiful, beautiful bottle. Yeah, 13-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey from Speyside. Let's see what this Altmore from First Fill Sherry Casks has to offer, shall we? Very excited by this one. And again, I can't pull foil tabs today, apparently. I'm useless at this. I need to get an official bottle opener. Not like a device, but a person. I should just get Brett to stand there and open the bottles for me whenever I'm filming. Brett's got better things to do with his time, though. Very nice. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, nice big rich sherry cask colour. Nice big rich sherry cask nose. One thing I don't generally find with sherry cask whiskies that I'm definitely finding with this one though, biscuity. I love a biscuity whiskey. And I'm getting straight up Garibaldi biscuits, or dead fly biscuits as they're known as in Yorkshire. Nothing to do with actual dead flies, but they're like sweetened, imagine like saltines, but with sugar instead of salt, and with raisins in them. That's basically a Garibaldi. Like a buttery sweet saltine with raisins in it. Oh yeah. Very classic Oloroso sherry notes. Lots of nut, lots of fruits, lots of pecans, maybe walnuts. Oh, good night, Irene. That is good. Again, slightly minty. I don't think I've had any mints today. I mean, I've brushed my teeth this morning, obviously, but I don't know why I'm tasting mint in most of these. But yeah, I get a little minty today. Maybe it's that entire packet of menthol cigarettes I smoked before coming here. No, joking. Yeah, no, that's very good. So far, the Artist Collective is 2 for 2. I mean, I brought them in because I like the story and I like design, and I've heard good things about the quality of the whiskey. I didn't get a chance to try any La Maison Do Whiskey before bringing them in. It was a bit of a gamble, but the gamble's paid off. That's good. That is a good sherried whiskey. Yeah. That is as good of a small batch single malt sherried whiskey as I can remember having in a while. I mean, it's not cask strength. It's not a sherry bomb. It's just well crafted. You know, it's as simple of a blended whiskey as you can get. It's literally 2 casks. There's not much blending happening there. But it's nice. It's soft. It's round. It's rich. It's not aggressive in any way. It is wholly welcoming. It's yeah, a work of art in more than one way with this whiskey. Yeah. And if you feel like a 13-year-old beautiful 48% sherry cask whiskey is something you might be interested in, this Altmore can be picked up It is released right now at strathliquor.com. Normal price is $226, so with your 10% off, it is currently $203.40. $203.40. And, you know, it has to be said, I know for some people that's like, well, you know, that's about $20, $30 more expensive than I would normally have thought, you know, a 13-year-old Altmore at 48% would have been. Well, yeah, but remember, that money is going to support the arts, and it's going to support Charlotte Marchand, who is, making beautiful, beautiful pieces like this. And you don't just get the whiskey, you get the artwork as well. And yeah, I think this is something cool. I think this is something worth supporting. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity to bring them into the Strath, and I hope you guys enjoy them as well. Very cool. So with that, let's move on to whiskey number 6 today. And, you know, I like to be as fair as possible whenever I can. I like to treat situations fairly. And if we're gonna have a Hunter Lang, then it's only fair that we have a Douglas Lang as well, right? It just makes sense. So next up we have a Douglas Lang. We're pretty damn familiar with Douglas Lang here at the Dram Association. We had an Indy spotlight all about them. I very much recommend going back and watching that episode. They bring us the remarkable regional malt. So they're the guys responsible for Scallywag and Big Pete and Rock Island, used to be Rock Oyster, all of those guys. And they used to be the Old Malt Cask guys before the split. And after they lost the rights to the Old Malt Cask name, they came up with a new name, Old Particular. And Old Particular, unlike Old Malt Cask, doesn't have to be changed when you have a grain whiskey. So that's what we've got right here. We have an Old Particular grain. This is, again, one that's actually been on the shelves for a little while at the Strath. So it's not a brand new release, but you can still get your 10% discount because we're featuring it. And yeah, this is pretty cool. Port Dundas 15. Brought in for a regular watcher, a regular listener. Listener sounds less creepy. Calling you a regular watcher, Jeff, just sounds a little bit odd, doesn't it? But yeah, Jeff tried this at a different tasting and asked me to bring it in for him, and I haven't had a chance to try it yet, so looking forward to going for it. Port Dundas, a closed distillery. A distillery that was used to be in Glasgow. It used to be the biggest distillery in Scotland. It closed down in 2011. Yeah. And as well as using some malted barley in the mash bill, it was known for using both corn and rye, apparently. But I don't think we know what kind of ratios they worked with. They kept it a little secret. But yeah, pretty cool. So what's special about this Port Dundas? It's only 15 years old, which, you know, for a malt whiskey, you think 15-year-old's pretty high. But for a grain whiskey, I say only because you just kind of expect grain whiskies to be a lot older than that sometimes, because that's kind of how the world discovered grain whiskies can be good, is through older grain whiskies. But that's not the only case. It's not the only way you can make a grain whiskey incredible. One way you can make a grain whiskey incredible, apparently, according to those who have tried this before, is finishing it in a Pedro Jimenez sherry butt. And that is exciting. It's one of 325 bottles from that Pedro Jimenez sherry butt, which is weird because a sherry butt usually holds about 600 bottles. Don't know what happened to the other half. It was distilled in July of 2004 and bottled in December 2019. Yeah. Very, very cool. Very nice. So, I know, you're probably very excited about the fact that this is the second grain whiskey. There's only 2 grain whiskies in this Indy showcase. But if you're, a fan of independently bottled grain whiskey and you want to pick up a third, you want to make it a trilogy, I happen to have actually already recorded next month's outturn. And I don't want to give too much away, but there is a pretty damn good grain whiskey in there. So don't worry, we've got you covered. 15 years old, finished in a PX, but let's give it a shot. What I was expecting to find on the nose here because of how highly people have talked about this whiskey, I was expecting it was just going to be just a complete sherry bomb, and it doesn't really matter where the whiskey is from, what the whiskey is, it's all you taste is sherry. From the nose, that is not the case. From the nose, I'm still getting an awful lot of sort of classic older grain characteristics. Very, very similar actually to the Girvan that we had earlier on today, but with that nice Christmas cakey twist. There's flaming Christmas pudding going on here. There's like sultanas soaked in brandy that have been lit on fire. Oh, and there you go on the palate. Whole lot more Pedro Jimenez on the palate. That is deep, dark, rich sherry. That is excitingly different to the nose. I was not expecting quite the change there. That is a whole lot of PX going on. But it's nice that the nose is a little bit more spirit forward, because it gives you the idea of what to then look for in the spirit beneath that PX. I've got that PX, I've got it, but I've also got this beautiful, sweet, fudgy vanilla as well. Yeah. Power to you, Jeff. You can pick out a damn good whiskey. I can understand why you asked for me to bring this one in. There's only a couple of bottles left now, but yeah, anyone who wants to pick one of the last ones up, normally $226 down to $203.40. And I know I'm not going to disappoint Jeff too much by putting it on sale now, because Jeff already got it on sale. He's a premium member. And if you like Jeff, I mean, not if you like Jeff, but if you... Similarly to Jeff, if you would like to be eligible to get 10% off all of our whiskies all of the time, all you need to do is join the Dram Association Premium. $10 a month, and it'll give you access to 10% off every whiskey in the store, aside from S&WS whiskies and aside from whiskies that are already on sale. That will also then include discounts on the in-person tastings, and will also include the opportunity to sample drams in store again once we're able to do that. It will also, right now, for those of you who have been subscribed for the whole time during the pandemic, will also include a pretty damn good welcome back special treat. But yeah, well done, Jeff. You picked out a good one. I'm very happy with that. All right. Sherry. A lot of sherry. So we've had two sherries. It's time for some peat, I think you'll all agree. So we'll go for Dram 7 in this Indy showcase. And we have a third artist collective. And an artist collective, again, I'm really looking forward to. The little trilogy that we got as a dipping our toe in the water for the artist collective is very exciting, and we have ordered more that will be arriving later this year. But I was very excited to see a Clynelish, and of course, you know me, Clynelish isn't the only Highland whiskey distillery that gets me excited. This will also do the trick. This beautiful palette of blues and violets is all about Ardmore, one of my all-time favorite distilleries. So this is 3.6 in the collective series. This is a batch of 7 casks. And the cask type, which I feel like is a bit of an interesting translation mishap. Cask type is listed as bourbon cask after Islay. So, after doing a little bit more research, what they mean by bourbon cask after Islay is they mean it's matured actually for the full amount of time in an ex-Islay cask. So this is something that we're relatively familiar here in BC with. It's something that Shelter Point do, something we did with our Echoes of the Hebrides. It's something that is normally done as a finish, though. This apparently is its entire life in an ex-Islay cask. And knowing Ardmore, and knowing the fact that they actually used to have the Ardmore traditional cask, which is exactly that, as an official bottling that was, I think, an airport exclusive for a long time. They work specifically with a very well-known distillery on Islay called Lafroig. You might have heard of it. They're actually owned by the same company, so it kind of just makes sense. So what I'm expecting here is the classic Ardmore Highland-style whiskey that I know and love, with a nice infusion of coastal iodine-like Laphroaig flavours, and that's what I'm hoping for. But also, I have to say, I really like the art on this one as well. It's got nice sort of texture to it. Let's find out about it. This is Baa Anam by Bridget Althape. I'm probably butchering the names, I'm very sorry. After 12 years at La Gobiniers Artist Workshop in Nantes, I don't even know what Nantes is. I don't know where or how to pronounce that. Bridget Althape decided to work on her own art. She brought with her the techniques of the richness of the use of various materials to work now on canvas, but also wood. She hunts old doors in flea markets and second-hand shops, and that's the texture. Cuts and sands the surface, but keeping a trace of the past. This is what brings so much richness in her work. That is an interesting medium to be working in. Old doors. So that is what we're looking at here, is art made from old doors. That's pretty neat. Cool. So this Ardmore was bottled at 43%. Not necessarily the choice I would have personally made for an Ardmore going in blind, but again, these guys seem to know exactly what they're doing, so I'll put my faith in them, I'll put my trust in them. Come on, there we go. Maybe the peat with an ex-peated cask was a little overwhelming at higher ABVs. Maybe this tames it a little bit. But let's see where we're at. Well, I have to say, on the nose, it feels a whole lot more Laphroaig than Ardmore, which, don't get me wrong, as much as I love Ardmore, I do very much enjoy Laphroaig as well, so that's no bad thing. But yeah, I'm getting a nice hit of that salinity coastal iodine thing. But it's like an older Laphroaig, right? So it's not like the quarter cask and the 10, which are quite punchy. It reminds me somewhat of the old 15. A little bit more toned down. But then there's a second layer of softer wood smoke underneath it. Yeah, they've used these two peated styles to a very interesting effect. Much like the artwork, actually. There's like the Ardmore is like the old door, and then it's been given new life with that sort of fresh coat of Laphroaig. You can still sense the original piece underneath, but it's been changed, it's been updated. I wonder if they actually thought that hard about pairing the artwork with the whiskies, because for me that just makes so much sense, but maybe it's purely accidental. Oh yeah, no, that's a great little nose, that is. Not aggressive in any way. Again, 43%. That's kind of the good thing about having a whiskey bottle at 43%. It's not gonna scare you off. Huh. I've had a few Ardmores from ex-Laphroaig casks. This is the most Laphroagian. This is the most Laphroagian Ardmore I've ever had. This is beautiful. This is really cool. This is unique. This is so much blurring the line between Laphroaig and Ardmore that this is basically feels like it's a blend. It doesn't feel like a single malt. It feels like it's got enough complexity that it's a blended malt. The peat is strong, right? Ardmore's not known for its strong peat, but here it is. Even at 43%, you're getting these big, luscious, rich, smoky flavors. Yeah. That is the most balanced Laphroaig, or the most smoky Ardmore I've had, and it's hard to tell which one it is. Yeah, it's like it's wearing a mask where it's half and half. I don't know where the Ardmore ends and Lafroig begins, but I do know I like it. And I do know that I'm going to have to tuck one of these away for myself, I think. Yeah, no, I think I'm going to have to do that. But I will let you guys have a fair crack at it first. If it doesn't sell out today, then I'll be poking one aside for myself. This is a brand new release. You can see it online at strathliquor.com and buy it right now. As with all these whiskies, it's featured, so you get 10% off. Its normal price is $168.61, so you can get it for $151.75. So yeah, even with paying a fair price for the artwork and supporting the arts, that's still a pretty good price for this whiskey, I think. And I think a large part of that is keeping the price lower by not making it cask strength. But it works. This is a really nice whiskey. Would I prefer it at cask strength? Yes. Would I prefer it at cask strength, knowing that releasing it at cask strength would make it $220, $230 instead of $151? No, I'm happy with the price. The price makes sense for this. Yeah, I'm happy with that trade-off, personally. I don't think... Yes, not being a cask strength hurts the whiskey a little bit, but it doesn't hurt it that much. I'm a fan of it at this ABV. I will quite happily drink my way through a bottle of this in no time at all, probably. Lovely. So it's time for the final whiskey of Indy Showcase 7. And this is a whiskey we've had before, but we've never had at an Indy Showcase, as far as I'm aware. We had this in 2020, just before the outbreak, just after the Victoria Whiskey Festival 2020, when we had two very special guests up in the Maple Room for a very special post Victoria Whiskey Festival Dram Association tasting with the late, great Jay Wheelock and Tommy Boyd of AD Rattray. And we still have some of the AD Rattrays that were presented at that tasting, which frankly is amazing because they were all very, very good and incredibly well priced. And this is no different to that. This is just a frankly incredible whiskey for the price, like they all are. And it's also quite peated and a fantastic way to finish off this Indy Showcase. So again, this one's already available. You can pick this one up at strathliquor.com right now already. This is a Crofton Ghee, which is apparently how you're supposed to pronounce it. So that's what Tommy Boyd taught me. I've always pronounced it Crofton Jaya, and apparently I'm wrong. Crofton Ghee is the heavily peated Loch Lomond. And from what I understand, that I'm not entirely sure. So I just did some more research into this. So Inchmowan and Inchmurrin are both the ones that are made in their hybrid pot still with the straight net pot still that they've got plates in. And then the Loch Lomond malt is what they're, which can be peated or unpeated as well, is what they do with their standard swan neck pot stills. Crofton Ghee, I don't know how it's made. I can't find out. If I was a guessing man, I would probably say that it's most likely going to be a blend of the two. But because I know they like blending the different styles, but I honestly don't know. But if you did blend the two, it's still technically a single malt, even though it's two different styles of still, because it's still made at one distillery, right? But yeah, Crofton Ghee. Crofton Ghee? Crofton... Is it Crofton G or Crofton Ghee? I've forgotten what Tommy told me now. It's one of those two. It's definitely not Crofton Jaya, whatever it is. I think it's Crofton Ghee. Anyway, yeah. So, AD Rattray, if you're not familiar with them, they started off in 1868, and back then, of course, there was no business in importing and exporting of Strongbow cider, so these guys had to make do with fine Italian olive oil. Just as an interesting of an origin story, if not more so. They were merchants in Glasgow. They were very well known in the late 1800s, and they became tangled in the whiskey business through their contacts at Stronachy Distillery. They became well known as representatives for distilleries, selling their spirit in bulk to both blenders and bars alike. So A Dua Rattray had to change their name because the guys at Duas didn't like the fact that they were using the word Dua, which it's fair. I mean, it's in the name, but at the same time, it doesn't really help either of them to be associated strongly with a different brand like that. So changing it to AD Rattray just made a lot of sense. And I do love a Loch Lomond. This is a 12-year-old. It is one of 145 bottles distilled on the 2nd of April 2007, bottled on the 4th of November 2019. It is a Highland from a bourbon hogshead, and it is part of cask 396. Bottled at 56.9% ABV. And I just want to note that it's actually quite incredible that this was bottled on the 4th of November 2019 and then was in BC and being drunk at the Victoria Whisky Festival in 2020. That's going to be the quickest turnaround I've ever seen the BCLDB manage to do. So congratulations to the BCLDB. You can actually import whiskey and process all of those things in record time. I really wish you could do that now. I really wish that these holdups of months and months of waiting for SKUs to be activated, which is literally just paperwork. It wouldn't happen, and you've already proven that it doesn't have to. So, go guys. Anyway, enough ranting. Time for this beautiful whiskey. And this is a whiskey I am quite familiar with. I have a bottle already on my shelf, which is woefully low, but I just want to share the experience of this whiskey with more people before it leaves our shelves forever. This, it's a smoke bomb. Don't get me wrong, it's complex. It's got all kinds of nice. It's got this grapefruit. It's like a grapefruit skin that's been bandaged up. Like it's band-aids on a grapefruit. Or I've got hiccups now apparently. That's kind of my go-to thoughts of this whiskey anytime someone asks why I like it so much and why I keep sharing it with people in my backyard when we're able to do that. But this it's like a band-aid on a grapefruit with a side of what's it called? That classic Scottish biscuit, which I'm blanking. It's shortbread. Blimey, why am I blanking on the name shortbread? I ain't got too much sun today. Yeah. Just as good as I remember. It's, again, weirdly Lafroigian. And even more weirdly, because it's got literally nothing to do with Lafroig. It wasn't, unlike the Ardmore, it wasn't finished in a Lafroig cask. But the thing with this whiskey is, it's 56.9% whiskey. It's 100% whiskey. It's 56.9% alcohol, and it's very, very, very strongly peated. But it's not aggressive. It doesn't make you want to like whoa. It doesn't slap you in the face when you drink it. It's still, it's a fulfilling, wholesome, massive experience of flavor, but it's not aggressive. You know. So what else am I finding in there today? Let's see if I can find any other flavors. I think today I'm finding much more lemon over grapefruit. I'm finding more seafood, maybe smoked kippers, than I would usually tell people I find in this whiskey. Yeah, actually quite a lot more seafood. Which is again weird, because Loch Lomond's not really that close to the ocean. Crustaceans, shrimp tails, crab. Just a whole lot of smoke. And maybe a little bit of engine oil, actually. There's a little bit sort of synthetic. There's a little bit of a man-made element to this one, for sure. So yeah, thank you very much, Jay Wheelock, for bringing this in. Thank you, Tommy Boyd, for creating it, really. He's the warehouse manager, I believe, over at Rattray, and he would have been one of the guys that would have picked out this cask for a single cask release. Fantastic whiskey. Just, one of my favourites from 2020. And just a bonkers low price. This is a cask strength. This is a cask strength single cask 12-year-old Highland whiskey, heavily peated. Normal price $132.09. Right now, 10% off, $118.88. If this doesn't sell out in the next couple of minutes, I will be frankly very, very surprised. That was a highlight of early 2020. And a whiskey that I've been enjoying in my own collection for a little while now, and will be sadly saying goodbye to my own bottle quite soon. But yeah, pick yourself up a bottle. There's only a couple remaining. Strathliquor.com. thank you very, very much for joining us for another Indie Showcase. Hopefully, Indie Showcase 8 will be back in person again. I'm very hopeful that by the end of the year we'll be able to enjoy and explore whiskey together as an in-person community. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and thank you for joining us here on YouTube. And enjoy the weather. It's beautiful outside at the day of recording. Hopefully it's beautiful outside on the day that it's being released. Go for a walk if it is. Enjoy some sunshine. If it's not, stay inside and have a glass of whiskey. Actually, either way, if it is nice outside, go for a walk, enjoy the sunshine, then come home and have a glass of whiskey. Either way, have a glass of whiskey. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Apparently, I haven't really even drunk any water. I've been told I should make sure to visually drink water on these videos more often to make sure that I'm telling my audience to stay hydrated, because it's a very important part of the whiskey drinking experience. Stay hydrated. And I will see you, I guess, on the Cinco de Mayo. That's our next video, Cinco de Mayo. I will see you for a very special little peek into the world of tequila and mezcal. Slash bar. Good night.
Find your way